I know I said I was going to stop, but this thing happened, and it's called an ear infection, and I had physical therapy today, and I was supposed to be recording, but I don't quite feel up to recording just yet, so here I am, and I have permission from some of my beautiful friends, specifically Avienda69 and DhampirDrinksEspresso, to read you a few of their lovely stories. Oh, my volume is too low, I'm sorry. Here. Is that better, love? I was messing about with the mixing board. Hi. I made you a present. Let me see if I can make it show. How do I make it show the thing I wanted to show? Here we go. You can't hear me either. Okay. Give me a second. Hey, baby. Is that better? Let's turn these volumes right the way up. How's that doing? Okay, we're better now. Okay, thank you. I was footsing about with my mixer. I had every intention of trying to get Triad recorded tonight. And I had physical therapy, which it fell through, and there were things, and I just had a shitty day, and I was going to come on here to warm up. And then I kind of owe the lovely Constant Conrad, and I'm going to try raiding him at the end of this so everyone can come and meet my friend Conrad, who's a lovely little Aussie guy who is a video game streamer. But he let me... it's happening. I just didn't manage to get it recorded tonight. My camera's fallen off again. What on earth is going on? I made you a Star Wars scroll of the front of the Force of our Bond, because you say right here that you make an opening crawl of these words. So I made you a little scroll. It is not very good. I will animate it at some point, but this was just me attempting to get the vibe, and that's actually why I was late to the stream, because I was fucking about with this, because I'm a grown-up, honest. So he's ready to hear some filth. Have we got Dump here? Because she's not well, and I want to make sure that she's with us. 1 second. Let me go back to chatting before. There is a website that does it custom, but I was trying to do it without having to do that website, because they feed the bots, and I try not to feed the bots. I'm telling that I'm asking her live on stream if she's coming or not. There we go. So Dhampir's volunteered some stuff. There we go. There you are. Hello, love. That clicking was me asking you if you were coming. Right. So, thank you, Avienda, for your endless patience. So we're going to have some of the Force of our Bond, and I'm going to read that until we swap for something else. We might have a little bit of some Clydephelia, I think, after this. Depends what mood we're in. So pop your suggestions in the chat if there's something specific you want me to read tonight. It's very free and loose. I was all ready to record, and then I wasn't, because today sucked. Rey's womanly needs give Kylo a chance to find comfort, and the depth of their bond helps him turn back to the light. But he must end the war first, and to help him, Rey accepts his proposal and boards the ship as his consort. Once in the system, she discovers something even a hardened Darksider won't stomach. I know, the Force of our Bond is it's such a fantastic story, isn't it? Today's ridiculously sugary voice acting drink is lemon iced tea from the Chinese supermarket. Ray had been lying in bed for most of an hour when she decided to stop pretending she was reading the data book in her hand and just give in to her need. She had felt the moisture gather within her core for most of that hour, and now it was starting to seep from between her folds, down the cleft of her buttocks and onto the sheet below. Damn that man. She discarded the data book. The door was locked. She was alone on board the Falcon. It was night. It was windy and raining hard outside, and she could hear the wet patter of the roof of the ship and the stream down gullies in rivulets. When her hand reached between her folds, it felt like she was dipping her fingers into a warm pond. Jakku is a dry, gritty place. Too hot in the daytime, too cold in the night time, when all you have is 3 threadbare blankets. Pleasure is hard to come by. The company of boys was a terrible risk to take when you didn't have contraception. The company of girls was pleasurable, but a fleeting thing when you never felt like you could quite connect with them. With anyone, really, not even the people here on base. Not when you finally knew what connection could be. When she thought of Kylo Ren, she usually pictured his face. The intense dark almond eyes, the prominent nose, the plush lips. She glimpsed one round ear peeking through his cascade of rich black curls. The scar she'd given him bisected his face to slash through his high cheekbone, down his throat, over his collarbone to his smooth, broad chest. His shoulders and neck were so thick. She didn't think she'd ever seen someone so muscular all her life. And he was so massive. And yet there was a softness to him. It had been the Force that had wanted her to see him bare-chested, probably as he was getting ready for bed. He hadn't been too pleased about it. He'd moved slowly, stiffly, uncomfortable with the sudden exposure, but not embarrassed by his near-nakedness. He was confident, or maybe detached from his appearance. The hand on her mound parted the sandy curls and found the moisture within, grazing against her clit, which was softly pulsing and swelling, demanding attention. Her other hand pushed her night shift up to caress her own chest and stomach. Her small breasts heavier now that she was eating every day. The skin was smooth and warm, and her climbing muscles were hard. For a moment she could pretend her body was someone else's. His. She could pretend her calloused hands were someone else's. His. Eyes closed, she tried to imagine more of his body, but could only get the impression of it. The sheer strength of it. How he had moved against hers so gracefully. His hands, his fingers wrapped around her wrist, warm and long and thick. She slipped her own finger inside herself then, reaching for the pleasure she knew she would find when she alternated between filling her pulsing void and rubbing her swollen clit. Her other hand was caressing her breast and pinching her nipple hard when the sound went out. She kept her eyes closed as she heard him breathe in a surprised gasp. It could only be him. The top sheet was thin and wouldn't hide the movement underneath it. She'd been caught, slick-handed. For a heartbeat, time stood still. Then she took one shaky breath and continued pleasing herself. Force be damned. For all the grief he'd caused her, he would endure this teasing. She turned her face away from where she could feel his eyes burn into her form and dragged the sheet down a few inches to bare breast. There she could hear his breathing clearly now. It had started again, heavy. Somehow he understood, through their connection or some instinct, that it was better he kept quiet, that he let her pretend she was alone and relaxed, and simply finding her pleasure in the comfort of her berth. Except for the part where she did tease her nipple perhaps more than she normally would. Except that knowing he was there, it became painfully obvious that her body would not be satisfied with her usual ministrations. She rubbed at herself harder, working up a sweat. The tingle in her clit, at first intense, but now fleeting, and she suddenly cast the sheet aside, legs splayed, and the sudden cool air was as much relief as the full exposure of his sight was a flame that licked at her. She covered her face with her left arm, kept her eyes tightly shut. She heard his heavy step and felt him move. The bed creaked and dipped near her knee. Without a word, he had come to sit beside her. With her eyes closed, this was still a fantasy, that she only imagined him there with her. She parted her thighs more, reaching into her knee, found his hip, touching him, pushing against him. She heard his breath catch in disbelief. Her own breath was coming in fast and shallow. Suddenly she took her hand away from her folds and slid it down her thigh, reaching until she found his hand. He wasn't wearing his gloves. She briefly wondered what state of dress he was in, then decided against looking and breaking the spell. It didn't matter. His hand was naked. She splayed his long fingers to do a soft curl over her thigh, and he pushed it down just slightly, if testing her give, and the effect was of creating a tension on her centre that made her want to sigh with want. He hummed a soft acknowledgement, but made no other move. Who was teasing who now? She wrapped her hand around the two of his fingers and pulled them to her centre. It was decided then she would invite him to her body. He let her bring his fingers to her, dragged his palm up along the sensitive skin of her inner thigh, and the moment his fingertips bumped against her core, she shivered and nearly folded in half to reach for all of him. It took real effort to keep within the rules of the game they were playing. It was a game of sorts. So much of Kylo Ren was a frightening beast of a man. His size, his crazy crimson lightsaber, his helmet. Was he wearing his helmet now? His power, both in the Force and in the First Order, but now circumscribed to just two fingers, silent and invisible. He was just the object of her desire. His fingers were hot and hard against her core, and she circled her nub with them. He gently arched them to present the pads, not the hard ridges of his nails. The sensation was terrific. Within seconds, she knew the means to her satisfaction. He followed her guidance carefully, and she realised he was attentive to learn the ways of her body. She also realised she needed him where the moisture was, so she pushed the fingers down into her folds. He groaned at that, and she was suddenly reminded that Kylo Ren was still attached to his fingers, and that he was being very patient and very good at not tearing her limb to possess and destroy her. She gave a little moan at that, and pushed his fingers all the way inside her core. She climaxed almost instantly, surprising herself, body moving in soft waves as he moved with her gently to ease her through it. It was so sudden and so intense she heard him swear softly as the sensation permeated through the bond in a loop-back of feelings. And she was suddenly aware of his body, his throbbing erection, as it was constrained in his breeches. The merge faded. They were two distinct people again. He slid his fingers out of her body and got up from the bed. He started, but couldn't continue. She opened her eyes just in time to see him fade away. He hadn't been wearing his mask, and his eyes were tragic. That's my scene change noise now. It happened again within days. She had spent the last 2 days obsessed with the impression of his cock on her mind. She'd felt it through the bond, as if it had been hers, as if her body bore it now. All she wanted was to touch it. When next he appeared to her, he was busy in a meeting, but left it quickly to find privacy. He was fully dressed, with a light cloak and a new helm. When he reached for the catch to remove it, she took his gloved hands away so he would keep it. There were no words for what she wanted, so she shared the hunger she felt with him. He stilled immediately, as if frozen in shock, then reached for the door's lock and activated it. Again he kept quiet, letting his jagged breath and stiff body speak for him, making an obvious effort to relax in her metaphysical presence. She moved in close to reach his waist and tug at his wide, thick leather belt. It was tight and stiff, and it held him in as surely as another restraint, another layer to his armour, not giving him an inch of breathing space. She suddenly felt the urge to pry him out of his shell. She fumbled the hooks and loops and undid them quickly while he stood, barely keeping himself so still as not to frighten her. The belt fell to the floor, and she found she could unfasten the bottom half of his tunic the same way. Once the top of his trousers was in reach, she found the top button and pried it loose. Kylo's breath was coming in deep and ragged, and his hands rhythmically clenched by his sides, while emotions roiled within him, anticipation and doubt, questions. What was she trying to do? Seduce him to the light? She answered with a wave of dark desire. He almost turned away. He did reach behind himself to find support. She followed him a few steps to a solid wall he could hold on to. Within a minute all the buttons were undone, and she took a breath before plunging her hand down into his underwear. He grunted. Brushing against a dark hairline along his hard stomach muscles, she found his warm root tangled in a jungle of short curls, and wrapped her fingers around the soft, springy flesh. It didn't take long for it to grow into her hand. "Ray," he started in that horrid metallic voice, putting a hand on her shoulder. "Hush." She leaned forward to look at what treasure she'd dug up. It was beautiful, straightening and swelling, the half-sheathed glands an appealing rose like his lips. She looked up, suddenly wanting to kiss him, but she had made him keep his mask on, the black and silver facade indecipherable, and she saw only her hungry reflection in it. His quick intake of breath told her of a shared desire. No. She would not kiss that monster. She would not give him that human face. She looked down again at the smooth hardness she held, now mostly freed from its fabric confines. With her other hand, she tugged down at his clothing to get more of him out, and felt him tremble but comply. She caressed his hip bone, reached behind to feel the bump of his buttocks and the tight cleft between them before sliding her hand forward to push it under his soft shirt and feel all the muscle there. She felt his lingam throb in her hand. Now it was hard. She gave it a few strokes, and the dark armoured warlord swayed and had to shift his feet to keep his balance. One gloved hand made as if to reach to take her hand away, stopped and hesitated. She heard another deeper intake of breath, and then a shuddering release, and the leather-clad hand fell away, surrendering. She was simply returning the favour, Ray thought, as she alternately stroked him firmly and then softly. The little experience she had enough to tell she was working improperly, as a glistening drop of moisture appeared on the florid tip. She stared at it for a second, before gathering it on her index, then brought it close to her lips. She tasted it. It was the salty, warm taste of life, of desire, of sex, of manhood. He shuddered again, and she clearly felt disbelief wash from him as he whispered a barely audible "Oh." Again, softly, gentle, affectionate permeated through the bond. It made her want more. So she closed her eyes and leaned down until her cheek brushed up against the warm firmness, and it caught in her loosened hair. She breathed him in. It was the wild scent of leather and sweat. The hand on her shoulder tensed and relaxed, and caressed her tentatively. It stilled again when she turned her head and kissed the shaft. She moved her kisses up the line, deepening each one until she was spreading her own moisture on him by the time she reached the top, where she gently pushed the skin down free of the corona. More juice seeped out, and she gave him a quick lip before taking him in her mouth. What was she doing? She was claiming his body. The Force had bound them. Their minds, their souls, without any control to that link. She could at least control the way their bodies would meet. And as she took him in and worked him, she let herself be very sensitive to what his being channeled through that link. And as surprise and disbelief faded, the affection grew until she knew what the dark void needed more than anything in the galaxy. More than anything his power could grant him. An end to the loneliness. His hand moved to gently card her hair away from her face, never pushing, just playing softly in her curls. He had removed a glove to better touch her. Soft moans were starting to escape him. In her mind, she could hear him making all kinds of promises to her, and she felt her own core throb and gather moisture. He must have sensed that because he started tensing again, thighs working to keep him standing. She adjusted her pace. She knew what she wanted now. The desert flower was thirsty, and he was the source she wanted to drink from. Her throat clenched in anticipation of the reward for her efforts, and she took him as far as she could go, suppressing a gag but hearing him gasp or whimper above her. His legs gave out, and he fell softly to the floor, kneeling on the cold tile where she followed him down, now seated before him. She released him and heard him breathe a small sigh of relief from inside the smothering helmet. She grasped him, caressing again, her other hand pushing his shirt up, and he held it for a while as she kissed his washboard abdomen and nipped it. And when he bared a breast, she kissed and sucked at it as well, and he moaned again. "Please," he whispered involuntarily, and she leaned down to take him in her mouth again. She could please him and listen to him moan for her like this for hours, she thought. Unfortunately, the bond wavered, and she realized they were at separate ends of the galaxy. Let it go, she thought at him, and after a moment she felt his mind relax and his body tense, and his pleasure bubbled up and washed over her tongue. She drank him in while he throbbed in her mouth, thick and salty and mildly bitter, like the ocean. She sat back on her heels in time to see him fade, himself now in a position mirroring hers, clothes in disarray, and quickly reaching to remove his helmet. She barely saw a flash of his soft pink mouth before he was gone. "I'll find you," she heard him say. It wasn't exactly a threat. Damn, girl, you can write a blowjob. Now I'm a bit thirsty. It's still lemon tea though. Wouldn't mind a shot of what Ray's drinking. Hot damn. Oh, 1 second. That's right, that's just somebody asking me about compost bins. I'm not even kidding. It's so hot. Some people think that they do not write the filth as well as they do write the filth as well. Are you slightly less insecure about your filth writing now? Ray was dreaming. The taste of him had stayed with her for the rest of the day, and she had gone to bed with the memory of his fingers. She was dreaming of them moving over her folds again, softly pushing in, and in her dream she was breathing through her nose to make the sensation last a little longer. Sighing, she turned on her back to give better access to the memory, and she let it take her over, there, rubbing at her, softly, her thumb maybe, sliding down, spreading her for more, another finger, thick and wet, soft, flexible. That wasn't a finger. Slowly she was waking, but fought to remain in the dream, or at least in the state in between, sighing now, becoming more aware of the sensations visited on her body, but her eyelids still too heavy to open. There was a hand on her thigh, pushing her open gently. There was a hot breath on her core, soft kisses. He'd found her. A shudder took her whole body, and she moaned. The gift he was making her now was worth betraying all her friends for, war or no war. In the deep darkness of her cabin on the Falcon, she reached down with her hand and found the thick curls exactly where she expected them to be. She plunged her fingers in them and found one round ear, traced its shell delicately. A caress. He hummed over her, deepened the kiss. In the desert with so little water to keep clean, the gift was rare. Her whole body suddenly flushed as a wave of pleasure surged through her. Another hum of approval. She felt it resonate through her. His lips travelled up. He took his clit between them and gave it a light suck before releasing it. "Oh, Ben." "Hush," he told her, and it was only fair. And then he made good on the unspoken promises he'd made her last time. He knew she was awake now. He stopped trying to be discreet and gave her a real swipe of his tongue. Her body shuddered again, hips rising involuntarily to meet him. One large hand moved to press down on her pubis, index finger pushing one lip to the side while he laved her, humming appreciatively while she swayed. The hand holding her thigh pushed against it more, pulling at her centre and giving him room to settle more comfortably between her legs. He had her, and he was in no hurry. Ray lost track of time and space. Currents and tides travelled her body in surges and recesses as she felt herself flooding him in waves of pleasure, while his muscular tongue wrestled orgasm after orgasm from her. When he released her, she was sobbing. She thought he would fade away, but he folded her on her side instead, moved up to spoon her. He wrapped his arms around her, nuzzling into her hair, and they remained that way until she fell back asleep, exhausted. The next day was spent in a daze. People looked at her funny when she passed them on her way to the hangar bay. She had at last managed to focus on changing the parts in the repulsor lift engine of one of the better speeders when she realised Leia was there. "How's my son?" she asked, point blank. Rhea stood up precipitately, barely avoiding banging her head on the open panel, and wiped her grimy hands on her overalls. Her face flushed. She looked down at her feet. "Leia, I'm sorry, I don't..." Ray fumbled with the words. What are they doing? "I know you caught his interest, Ray. How's he treating you?" The older woman's tone was soft but firm. Ben Solo's mother was waiting patiently. Ray finally understood what she was asking. "He's very gentle, very affectionate." She looked up, the blush fading from her face. "He's been very lonely." Leia frowned for a second, sucking a tooth. "Do you think you could love him?" The scavenger shuddered at the thought. "He still frightens me. Maybe," she realised. "Don't tease him, please." And General Organa walked away. She had a slight limp, Ray noticed. She sat back down on the little stool, heart beating fast, her mind in turmoil. It's so good. It's so good. It's just like, oh, it's just so good. I'm just, yeah, the first time we read this was the night of the storm, and yeah, I was going back through it because I think we started like chapter 4 or something. And it's the recording from that. It's not. There's a reason I didn't put it up on YouTube, and it's just not listenable. So yeah, it deserved a reread. And I think, yeah. Oh, so this is not an official stream. This is just very much me. We did the wedding. I'm going through because Dhampir suggested that we either did My Shade of Grey or Spin Cycle or Light Coffee. And I'm just trying to find them at the moment. Does anybody have a preference? Let's have some coffee. Who doesn't like a nice cup of coffee? So the links. Gotta remember the links. So that was for that one, and this is for Light Coffee. So yes, the force of our bond was the first link, and Light Coffee is the second link. Additional tags. Purity culture, evangelical Protestants, premarital sex, deacon's daughter fee, sexual experimentation, teenagers in lust, 5+1 things, wet dream, masturbation, dry humping, fire riding, hand jobs, soaking, cock warming, prosthesis humping, cum marking, pulling out coffee as a metaphor for sex, no age gap, the underage is 2 teenagers, accidental jump, humping, time skips, first times, pregnancy, children, happy ever after. Everybody is sitting comfortably, or slightly comfortably after the last one. Thank you. Fee keeps saying it doesn't count, and as long as he gets to be with her, Clyde won't argue the point. 5 times it didn't count, and 1 time it very much did. Aside from ice cream socials and barbecue suppers or the odd funeral, the Logans never really went to church services, save maybe Bible school in the summer, and Christmas and Easter services when Granny Amelia May or Granny Sylvia and her spinster sister Great Aunt Maggie insisted. It wasn't so much that they did or didn't necessarily believe as Mummy and Daddy worked long shifts and second jobs on weekends, not having no one close by to take them as kids. Then they growed up and didn't really think much about it. The church services part, that is. Church people, though? Well, one church person in particular captured Clyde Logan's attention when he was 12 years old, and she held it without ever knowing for years. Ophelia Larson and her brother Laertes moved to Moon County after their mama passed. Laertes was 14, Ophelia was 11 going on 12, and as soon as he seen her on Easter Sunday, Clyde just knew he couldn't ever love anyone else. 1. Like instant coffee. Daddy always said instant coffee weren't the real thing. Dreams weren't real either. So when teenage Clyde had a dream about sweet Ophelia, Fee, letting him count her freckles, or kiss her mouth, neck, or touch her boobies, he figured that didn't count none. Not even when he woke up with a mess in his pyjama breeches. Likewise, if he thought about those dreams and got hard, well, weren't like he'd really done any of those things, and he couldn't just walk around with the front of his pants all tented, so weren't nothing wrong. Didn't even count, Clyde told himself as he reached under his waistband. Maybe she'd feel a little bad about saying her name when he came, but weren't like he'd done it on purpose. Besides, God might know, but he weren't telling. And Fee wasn't even there. Touching himself didn't count. Not the real thing. Like drip coffee. Nothing fancy. Gets the job done. That's what Daddy always said about Folgers or Maxwell House, whichever might be on sale, from the old bun coffee maker, or later that fancy Mr. Coffee that was mounted up under the cabinets. Space saver. Bigger than the old bun, and was supposed to put nothing on the counter underneath it, so there wasn't much space being saved, but that weren't none of Clyde's concern. No, Clyde's concern was Ophelia Grace Lily Larson. Fee, who just got prettier while he was in juvie on account of Jimmy's dang cauliflower plants. They had a project for sophomore English paper about a poem, and the whole trailer to themselves for another hour. A whole hour and their paper was done. Presentation practice, and Fee kissed him. Ophelia Larson kissed Clyde Logan right on the mouth. Just popped up on her toes right there in the kitchen in front of that old coffee maker and pressed her mouth on his. He'd already been uncomfortable on account of her being so close, smelling so good. Lilacs and sunshine. That's what she smelled like. And a little bit of sweet vanilla underneath. She tasted like cherry chapstick and peanut butter, and she felt like heaven, all soft and warm while she pressed against him. Clyde stared as she settled back on her feet and turned bright red. Tilted her head down, saw her hair fell around her like a violet lilac cloud. A vanilla lilac cloud, sir. He could hear his heartbeat. He could feel it in his dick. And then she looked up at him, eyes shining and sad, and, "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I thought you..." And then she shook her head, her face lost in a swell of hair. I should have known better. Never done this before. Of course it wouldn't be good," she muttered and reached for her bag. Clyde grabbed her, clumsy, but so sure it was the right thing, and she gasped when he hauled her up in his arms, pressed his mouth against hers, her little feet dangling against his shins. He turned and set her on the counter. Like this, she was almost tall enough he didn't have to crane his neck or strain nothing down to bed to her. "Felt right," he whispered, real close to her lips. And then she kissed him again and kind of sucked on his bottom lip, and it felt good. Almost as good as when he licked at her mouth, and she licked back, and their tongues touched, and he kind of grunted and did it again. And then she opened her mouth, and spit got everywhere, but she let him lick into her mouth, suck on her tongue, and she did it back. And Clyde only kind of noticed, and she raised her legs up and wrapped them around his waist as he tugged her back off the kitchen counter and stumbled to the den. Maybe they got a little carried away, stretched out on the couch, with her laying all on top of him. Her pretty yellow sundress bunched just above her knees, where they pressed into the cushion on either side of his hips. The kissing got better. Lots of practice. They both started moving below the waist like. And a couple of times she moved just right over his dick, where it strained through the zipper of his jeans, and he could feel how hot she was there between her legs, even through the thick denim and a pair of Hanes cotton briefs. She pulled back and sat up, her face flushed again, but not in embarrassment this time. He watched her nose scrunch, and she rocked rhythmically against him, steady and sure, and he couldn't help moving too, pushing up to meet her, thrusting against her like he did when he fucked up into his hand, and he felt the tingling start. Fee didn't protest when he put his hands on her hips, and she leaned back in, lips parted, and little puffs of breath tickling over his skin. Should we stop? Shouldn't we? On account of Jesus is watching, needing to stay pure and something like that. He'd heard it enough from her daddy and their preacher and most of the county. No, please don't stop, Fee said, twitching and canting her hips. Clyde's eyelids fluttered as sparks went off behind them. Don't count, she muttered. Clothes are still on, and it's not that different from a pillow, right? Confused, Clyde forced his eyes open, but he didn't stop thrusting up against her, pressing between her thighs as she rolled down against him. A pillow? He grinned at him then, a naughty smile, and nodded. Sometimes at night, when I can't sleep, I put a pillow between my legs and ride it, just like this. Fee pressed down against him on this, and Clyde thrust up and nearly choked on his own spit as he came, but that didn't matter none, because Fee threw her head back and shouted his name, and then stiffened and kind of jerked a couple of times. Gets the job done. Like latte art. Pretty to look at, and sometimes that's enough reason. As soon as he turned 16, Clyde got him a part-time job, afternoons and most weekends at the drugstore on Bald Knob, stocker checker and unofficial security. There was a little shop in the corner, coffee and pastries, and when Fee could sneak away, and Clyde had time before work, they'd meet there. He was right proud to be able to pay for the fancy drinks with the hearts or foam animals on top. And when Fee insisted he taste, he realised it wasn't half bad. Still tasted like coffee, even with the cream and sweet flavour syrup. Fee's favourite was the raspberry, and if it weren't a go, then they served it in a clear glass coffee cup. The pink colour made Fee smile, and that was worth setting aside a little every week, just for her. They hadn't said it, the L word. They didn't use words like boyfriend and girlfriend just in case it got back to her daddy or the preacher. They found out there wouldn't be no more sneaking off to meet Clyde on Sunday afternoons, no parking out on the side of a winding dirt road on the old Johnson farm, no Fee kisses, no feeling how wet and hot and slick she got for him when she slipped her panties off and climbed into his lap, straddling his thigh after they pushed his jeans and underwear to his knees. Maybe it should feel wrong there in the old car that used to belong to Aunt Maggie before she got too old to drive, according to everyone but her anyway. But the car was Clyde's now, all official like on his 17th birthday, and the driver's seat leaned back far enough that they didn't have to climb in the back. Clyde parked by the old pond out under a shade tree and set the parking brake, just in case. Fee lifted up in her seat, wriggling her panties down her legs while Clyde pushed down his own pants, dick already hard and leaking into anticipation. Fee kissed him before she even clambered over into his lap. They were better at kissing almost 2 years in, and he knew how to touch her, just like she knew how to touch him. He'd even tasted her a time or two when no one was home, laid out in his bed, put his mouth on her, and he hadn't been embarrassed or ashamed to come in his own pants when she'd pulled his hair and moaned his name. Why should he? But those were the rare exceptions. More often than not, it was this. Just the two of them in the car, hoping no bees flew in the open windows. Fee hissed and Clyde groaned as she lowered her wet pussy onto his leg, their hair on her mouth tickling just enough that the muscle tightened in reflex. She made that little whimpery sound that made his dick twitch. Actually, that might be the feeling of her hot little fingers grasping him, squeezing just right and stroking up and down while she rocked on his thigh. It was the one of the days he could hear how wet she was against his thigh, and he groaned into her mouth as she opened for him unlightly but the end of his tongue as it passed over her teeth. She squirmed and tugged, letting go of his dick and breaking away from his mouth to pull her dress over her head and drop it on the passenger seat, still sliding back and forth on his thigh, naked as a jaybird. She was already close. He could tell by the flush on her cheeks, the way the little puffs of breath carried out the cries of ah, 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 into the warm afternoon air. Clyde tried to brace his foot on the floorboard, flexed his leg muscle as she ground down, and he covered her mouth with his own as she shouted. He felt the tremble and clench of her pussy against his skin. He covered her hand with his own, wrapped his fingers around so they were jerking him off together, and feeling and close, put her mouth against his ear and whispered, "I want it on me this time." And then she leaned back, leaving her soft belly and those glorious tits uncovered as Clyde groaned her name and came. Fee grinned and spread it around, rubbing it into her nipples, making little swirly pictures on her tummies and thighs. If he hadn't just come, the sight of her sucking her fingers clean would have been enough to make it happen. They kissed again, slow and deep, as the breeze dried the fluid on her skin. "I love you," he said, surprising them both. "I love you too, Clyde Logan." He dropped her off as close to home as they dared to be seen together, and he watched her walk away, hips swaying, blue dress swirling around her legs, and his cum dried on her skin. His dick twitched in his pants, and he reached down to adjust himself, used to always being at least half hard just thinking about her. Sometimes that's enough reason. 4, like cold brew. Let it sit a long time, like steeping tea, and then filter it and drink it cold. You'd be surprised how smooth it is, how good going down. Between Daddy's accident and Mommy getting sick and the whole mess with Jimmy and his knee, Bobby Joe getting knocked up senior year, didn't have a lot of bright spots. Well, I had 1. 2 if it counted privacy separately from Fee, but they all kind of counted together. It was supposed to be her that said no, the one who wanted to wait, but more and more Clyde found himself being the one to put a stop to things. Weren't that he didn't want to, God and all the angels knew he did, but he'd started going to church with Fee, hoping her daddy would let him go take her to prom if he could show he was an upstanding church-going member of the community. And he listened to the sermons and the gossips alike. Virginity was a big deal. Little girls signing pledges, promising to wait for marriage, and everyone thinking that was normal to talk about. Seemed strange and more than a little uncomfortable to Clyde, but it was a big part of Fee's life, and of course he was 17, and he could only say no so many times before his own man parts would likely leap up and strangle him. So when Fee offered what she thought was a suitable compromise, he gave in. Someone's cousin had a friend who went away to school in Utah and told her about this thing, a loophole. Clyde thought it seemed a little odd, but they had condoms, and he loved her. He'd loved her for 5 years, and if she was really sure, yeah, of course she was, as long as they didn't move, it didn't count. Clyde about swallowed his tongue when Fee whipped her dress off, and her bra and her panties had little bow and lace trim. And then she pushed down her panties and she'd shaved everything. And really, what else could he do but lay down and make her kneel over him, ride his mouth and face like she did his thigh? For the first time ever, it made her come more than once. He done know that Jimmy was lying when he said it wasn't possible. That usually girl didn't even come at all. He fumbled with the condom. The first one broke before he got it all the way on. But then they were ready, and Fee stared up at him. Her hair spread all around her head on his pillow. And Clyde kissed the end of her nose and her chin and then her mouth, while he stretched out between her spread legs. It took a few minutes, and her nose scrunched up like she was about to sneeze a couple of times. But she saw it was fine as he pushed inside her body. She was tight and so hot, and her muscles kept kind of squeezing around his dick, like her body was trying to push him back out, but then he was in. The bed kind of shook. Clyde wasn't sure if it was from his trembling or hers. The sheen of sweat covered them both, and it was even harder than he expected to just not move. This good, he mumbled into her shoulder, and Fee ran her hands over his shoulders and arms. Perfect, she sighed. Eventually Clyde managed to lift his head, and he smiled down at her. Hey. Fee worried at her lip with her teeth, and her body did that squeezing thing again. Clyde sucked in a breath and tried to hold still, but he may have thrust forward a tiny bit, involuntarily, of course. How long? Like this? Fee shrugged. Oh, don't do that, honey, he groaned. Fee giggled, and Clyde made a strange, strangled, choking sound. They both gasped as the front door slammed, the trailer rattling and the floor shaking with cadence of Jimmy's limp, and Clyde's eyes crossed. Sorry, he managed as his body took over, hips pulling back and plunging forward as he groaned and filled the condom. Fee made a little breathy sound of surprise, and he felt a fluttering sensation all around his dick. I think I'm still fine, she wheezed. It was the shaking. We didn't do it. God'll know it was an accident. I can still wear white when we... I can still wear white when I get married. Clyde kissed her pretty mouth. You can wear white when we get married, no matter what. He kissed her nose again and grabbed the condom as he pulled out and rolled to his side. I love you, Fee, but this totally counts. She shook her head. Her eyes danced with mirth. No, accidents don't count. You'd be surprised how good. Like a pour-over. Less out of the bad stuff, more of the good. Life being what it was for Logan, things inevitably fell apart. Fee went away to college with Mommy and Daddy gone, and it looked more and more like Jimmy wouldn't be playing ever again. It fell on Clyde to be something. The recruiter made it sound good, and without Fee there by his side, Clyde was maybe a little lost. She was furious when he told her what he'd done, but it was too late by then. She promised to write, though, and email and call, whatever else she could figure out. For a while, she really did. But he got into the Rangers, and she got busy with another degree, and Clyde suspected her old preacher's son was sniffing around. Clyde focused on the job, on survival, on having a little money to set aside for Melly and Jimmy's new baby girl. At least they still had a chance. When one tour ended, he went back and ended up going home missing a hand. He was never sure whether it was Jimmy or Melly that told her, or maybe it really was her brother like she said, but Fee showed up mad as a hornet when he got out of the rehab centre, with that damn plastic hand and more scars than anyone should have to see. Half a man. And she was prettier than ever. Clyde tried to do what was only right, tried to stay standoffish and stoic and fucking mean. And she should leave and live her life with someone who could give her what she needed. He told her so. And that was either a mistake or the smartest thing he'd ever done. Clyde Logan, you shut your mouth right now. His jaw clamped shut, and he stared at the flush creeping up her neck and over her cheeks as Fee shook her finger at him. You just shut up with your half-a-man shit. And they both blinked at that. Look what you did. You made me swear. I'm so mad at you, Clyde Logan. How dare you talk about the man I love that way? You still love me? You love me? You still love me? She softened, her anger melting away, and his eyes went all blurry. I have always loved you, Clyde, and I always will. I knew when I was 11 years old that you were the man for me, made especially for me by God himself. He kissed away whatever she was going to say next, wrapped her in his arms, and then froze. That damn hand, the plastic, or whatever it was. Logans don't get the good things. He needed to let her go. Fee pressed closer, ran her hands down his left arm to where his prosthetic was attached. She toyed with the straps and buckles and looked down, running her fingers over the surface like she was learning on it. She looked up at him and grinned, and it was the naughty girl who kept insisting sex didn't count as sex. Get on the bed, she said, toned firm. She shoved the middle of his chest with one hand, staring expectantly, until he slid back and leaned against the pillows. He stared in awe as she stripped off her t-shirt and jeans, wriggled out of a pair of skimpy black lace panties. No bra. And her nipples pebbled when the air conditioner kicked in again. She climbed onto the foot of the bed and crawled toward him, angling to his left at the last moment. She mouthed at the straps and the skin above, stroked the thing that wasn't his hand at all, and then settled on her knees. What are you doing? She flashed that grin again, then kissed him with lots of lip and tongue and suction before settling back again. Clyde Logan, I'm about to show you that I love every part of you, even the ones that are store-bought. He still wasn't sure what she meant, until she frowned and grabbed a pillow, tucked it under his arm, and then she straddled the prosthesis and pillow. You tell me if anything hurts you, she ordered, and then Clyde stared, still half shocked, as she began to move, riding the thing he still thought of as damn fake hand, the way she used to ride his thigh back in high school. He opened his mouth to protest, but she moaned and grabbed his right hand, settling it on her chest as she humped the prosthesis. Even after years, he knew all her sounds, recognised the flutter of her eyelids, the scrunch of her nose and forehead. She shrieked in surprise when he flipped her on her back and settled over her. She squirmed when he lifted his left arm and licked the slick trail off the surface. Still as sweet as honeysuckle, he muttered, and she whimpered and counted her hips wordlessly, begging for friction. Clyde pushed the waist of the pyjama pants, and Fee moved quick as lightning, pushing him down over her hips. Her fingers wrapped around his dick, gave 2 half pumps, and then she wriggled until she had the head pressed right up against where she wanted it. It was like coming home, thrusting into her willing body, kissing teardrops away from the corner of her eye after she promised he wasn't hurting her. This count. She shook her head, eyes closed, short-cropped hair standing up all over her head as he thrust into her hard enough to shake the headboard against the wall. How about now? Another shake, but she couldn't seem to form the words. It counts, Fee, he insisted. No. see it does. He growled, hips jerking against her. It was fast and rough and desperate, and he pulled out at the last second, painting her belly with a spend before collapsing on top of her. Counts, he muttered against the side of her head. Always did, she whispered. You always counted, Clyde. More of the good. Like French press coffee. No paper filler. More control, better taste. Strong and rich. She wore white when they got married. Swollen belly front and centre, and no one said a word. Not even her daddy, who walked her down the aisle, with her brother on the other side, but no one gave her away. Fee kissed her daddy on the cheek, hugged her brother, and took the last 3 steps to meet Clyde on her own. Of course, that was 10 years now, and she still got prettier every year. Clyde looked at the framed pictures on the wall. Fee and their 2 babies, who weren't really babies no more. Holly was in 5th grade already. Levi would start kindergarten in the fall. A sound drew his attention. Clyde turned and watched Fee make her way across the room. Her curves were a little fuller. They both had lines that didn't go away anymore after a smile. She slipped her arm around his waist, and it was Fee's turn to get a little misty over the life they'd built. What do you think of one more? He muttered, rubbing her back. I think you forgot what it's like when Levi had colic. No, I remember. Fee smiled and leaned to his side. Happy anniversary, Mr. Logan. Clyde turned and kissed her forehead. She tilted her chin up and he kissed her lips, and Fee was the one to wrap her arms around him, deepen the kiss when he tried to pull away. Take me to bed, Mr. Logan. So of course he did. Be an idiot not to comply with that request, and Clyde Logan was long done with being an idiot. At least where it counted. Fee was showing again by Holly's 5th grade graduation. Strong and rich. Isn't that just oh, that was exactly the shot of coffee that I needed. That's just lovely. Oh. Yes, you managed to make prosthetic humping romantic. By the goodness, you're all terribly, terribly, terribly fucking talented. I love them too. Bella Cat, do you want me to do one of yours? What have we got that's just like straight up Bella Cat filth? Has everybody read the threesome scene from Rebel Rogue and Rakehell? Not your forte. I was just saying. Fee and Clyde are often extra naughty when you write them, Dhampir, and we are very grateful. Thank you. So, is anybody in the mood for a threesome? Well, I hope you are anyway, because I'm closing out with Triad, because that's supposed to be practicing to record tonight. So, threesomes all the way. Threesomes for everybody. Give myself the giggles. Love Triad. So I was supposed to be trying to record it tonight, but I've just had to go and to the emergency pharmacy and pick up antibiotics because I've got an infection. So what happened is my fellow streamer Conrad came on the stream last time expecting me to be reading porn, and walked directly into Nyx reading her horror story, and ran away. And when I next went to visit his stream, because he's Australian and I often listen to his stream as I'm dozing off, reasonably fairly, cat, what the fuck? So I pitched like her book at her, and like loads of people in Conrad's stream and went and bought Nyx's book, because it was really scary and they like horror. But Conrad does not like horror, bless him. So I promised on the next one I would read some filth. So my intention was to come and do a quick stream, and I was going to practice Triad before I recorded it. And then I had to go. I had an issue with my PT session, and then I had to go and get some antibiotics for a bit of an infection. So yeah, we're having emergency pornography. So yeah, it's not really a theme as much as let's have some smart, but yeah, yeah, smart. But yeah, my intention going forward is not like that's the title of the stream right there. Does everybody know how to use the clip function? So underneath, if you hover the mouse over me, you'll see a little clapper board. If you click on the little clapper board, it'll give you the option to clip. If you then clip the bit where I go emergency pornography, that would be amazing. Because that would be a fabulous clip to have, and we can turn it into a GIF if we want to, with some flashing logos. It's emergency pornography. We definitely need an emergency pornography GIF, I think. So, The Rebel, the Rogue, and the Rakehell, a Regency Breylo Romance. I'm pretty sure everybody here has already read it, but if you haven't, Rey is the ward of Luke Skywalker. The twins, Ben and Kylo, are a bit mean about... She's a bit of a horsey girl, and they're a bit mean about her. And then she hears them, and like there's Bazine, who's... Kylo was banging, and then she chases him out to the estate, and she's a dick and nearly gets Rey killed, and there's like a whole spoilers, a whole thing. But at the end we have a beautiful triadic marriage, because nobody can write that realistically quite as well, like an official Regency triad wedding quite the way MotherKat can at NewHopeIVReylo. So I don't think anybody else could write that quite as realistically. Like, if you feel it, it's not a plot device. It feels very real. But yeah, like Bridgerton, but with more threesomes. Yeah, Leia's kind of a dick for a while, and then she isn't, and there's like whole things of stuff, and it's awesome. Sorry, just trying to get to the bit, because I don't think we want the whole chapter. Oh god, sorry, I just saw the note and you're being nice about me, and I just remembered why. At long last, the wedding night tags have been updated accordingly. Thanks, as always, to my incomparable alpha MotherKat. She is most generous and thoughtful reader and writer and creator, unimaginable, and has such a wealth of knowledge. She steered me out of another barrow ditch of the jet. So, what actually happened was I pointed out that if you're going to do double penetration, then there's an order to it, otherwise it's uncomfortable. That's my entire input on this chapter. Was which way round you do double penetration. Because I wasn't always a tiny potato of a human. Order of operations are so important, says MotherKat. Important input, though, says Dhampir. And Under 69 says, what? Oh. But yeah. So the start of the chapter, there's like lots of loveliness about the wedding, and it says pornography PEMDAS. Well, that's another thing we clearly need to give. Pornography PEMDAS. So PEMDAS is the mathematical order of operations of the under. So I'm assuming that it has a different meaning, probably has a different acronym if you're speaking French. Yeah. Parenthesis, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. Because I can't learn anything if I don't give it a song. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Are we having math lessons in the middle of... No, it's supposed to be porn, not math. Don't forget where that clip button is, folks. Oh my goodness. So yeah, it should be like somewhere around the region of my third chin. If you hover over the screen, the clip button looks like a little clapperboard. This stream is so silly, yes. Because yeah, this is purely a tool that I have to help rehab my voice and do acty things. So and hang out. This is great because I'm working because I'm practicing. I mean, like all good sex, there's a hell of a lot of laughter. In my opinion, anyway. In my opinion, all good sex has lots of laughter. Dhampir says more partners equals geometry and exponentially increased difficulty. Oh, no risk, no reward. Stack the humans, you cowards. Yes, if you've Dhampir says yes, if you've never laughed during sex, you're missing out. Are there really people who've never laughed during sex? I can't imagine anything more depressing. Stack the humans! You know where it is, right? Just in the region of my third chin. Oh. Right, sorry. So the lady's maid has a lovely chat, and Cadel is the lady's maid. So if everyone's read this, Cadel is such a fantastic character in this story. Because she's just such a sassy pants. I just fucking love her, and the fact that she gets sacked from Lady Bazine's employ because she refuses to be an amoral sassy pants. Is just brilliant. And then she's like, I like you, so I'll help you blackmail my ex-employer. And just like, no batting on eyelid over the fact that they have come to this arrangement. Now, Cadel is a fantastic character in the story. I love that Cadel's kind of blankish, so we can put things on her, but almost everybody makes her just such a sassy pants, for obvious reasons. So my two favourite things, Cadel being a sassy pants and Cadel being Ben's sister are my favourite things. Poor Basin is so often the villain, but also so often a really good villain. Like, sometimes she's never boring. Or possibly it's just because our incredible fandom is incapable of writing boring villains. Yeah, Basin is always your avatar in the story. That's really interesting, MotherKat. I hate to say it, but in my head, mine's always C3PO. Not sure what that says about me, really. MotherKat says melodrama. Dhampir says she's my number 2 Reylo shipper right after a Poe. I love that. I love that idea. That she's on the ship. She's so often the other woman, and I think because well, no, honestly, my mental avatar in the story is always just like, I'm really happy to see everyone and I'm really happy to be here, but I'm actually quite scared. that's my mental attitude as an artist. Scare the shit out of myself sometimes. Oh, pardon the cousin. Green Umbrella says, I love it when the droids are Reylos. I love it when the droids are Reylos too. Like R2D2 as like the zappy little shipper pushing them off into cupboards and things is just brilliant. Alright, sorry, if we're going to read some of Triad as well, then we need to... So Kylo's just assuring them that so it's... I'll admit the gentleman now, shall I? Yes, by all means. Will you be sure to wake me before dawn? Kylo paused at the door. Whatever for, my lady? I want to be sure Ben has time to return to his chambers before anyone else awakens. But Kylo's brow furrowed. It's only Sir Luke left in the house now, my lady. Everyone else has returned to Guildford for the night. Everyone? Everyone. I believe every single room at the Angel has been let to your friends and family. Kylo tilted her head and looked pointedly at her mistress. So it's only Sir Luke at the other end of the house, and I don't know, but he's a wee bit deaf, my lady. Rey smiled at her lady's maid, meaning becoming clear. He does seem to have lost some of his hearing of late, doesn't he? Kylo chuckled as she opened the door, only to find Kylo and Ben standing impatiently in the hallway, both barefoot and clad only in their long shirts. They appeared for all the world like a pair of wayward schoolboys bent on mischief, and Kylo's chuckle grew into a full-throated laugh as she bobbed a curtsy. Sorry to have kept you waiting, my lords. I beg you enter, and bid you all a very good night. She closed the door softly behind her, and Rey rushed forward into their arms. I thought this day would never end. Nor I, Kylo growled into the hollow between her neck and her shoulder. I didn't sleep a wink last night. Nor I, Ben added, as he nuzzled behind her other ear. I cannot sleep when I'm next to you, my love. Rey stepped back, chewing on her lip. I regret my insistence on tradition, for I hardly slept at all myself. She took each of them by hand and pulled them toward the bed. Will you forgive me? The only thing we must needs forgive you for, my sweet girl, Kylo murmured, is that ghastly dressing gown. Do you not care for it, my lord husband? She asked lightly, dropping her gaze to consider the riot of garish floral embroidery on her sleeve. Basin selected it as part of my trousseau, I'll have you know. Damn it, woman. Ben yanked at the sash, pulling Rey's robe open with a kind of force that made her cunt flutter expectantly. If you do not behave yourself. Her eyes grew wide. If I do not behave myself, then what, my lord? Will you spank my rump like a recalcitrant child? Something in your tone leads me to suspect you would enjoy it, my love. Ben's eyes darkened. So perhaps I will. All in good time. Kylo chuckled as he drew the dressing gown gently from her shoulders. There are more pressing matters to hand just now. Would you not care for some wine, my lords? Ray shrugged the gran off, letting it drop forgotten to the floor. Or some sweetmeats, perhaps? I have some candied oranges here. I only want to taste one thing, my sweet little love, Ben murmured, sliding his arm around her waist and pulling her close. Ew. Time for bed, you two. Kylo gave the pair of them an indulgent smile as he crossed the room and returned with Ray's hairbrush. He handed it to Ben, and they waited till he and Ray were seated on the edge of the bed before climbing in behind her. She leaned against the intricately carved bedpost. The sound of rain pattering against the tall windows drew her attention. Is it true we're nearly alone in the house, but for your uncle? It is true, sweeting. Kylo pulled a hairpin from her complexly arranged hair, and a chestnut curl fell to her shoulder. Only Luke remains, and he's already comfortably ensconced in his new chambers at the other side of the house. It was very good of him to switch accommodations with you, Kylo. It was very good of him to switch accommodations with you, Kylo. Ben ran his fingers through the curl to loosen it. I only hope we didn't inconvenience him. I'm sure you did not, darling. Ray tilted her head down to allow Kylo easier access to her hair, and she shivered as his hands moved slowly, trailing along the back of her neck. He grew quite tired of hearing you two galloping down my hallway to my room every evening. I'm sure he appreciates the peace and quiet in the East Wing. He has asked Mother and Emlyn to remain in Guildford for another few days, so they may attend the wedding feast for the tenants. I hope they'll agree. Truly, Ben? Ray smiled up. I'd be very pleased indeed to show them both around Acto in the morrow. My own love, let us see what the day brings, shall we? Kylo tugged the last of the hairpins gently away, and her hair cascaded down her back. If you are awake before the clock strikes noon tomorrow, then my brother and I must account ourselves failures in every way. And I, for one, intend to sleep well past midday, Ben said with an easy laugh as he pulled the brush ever so gently through her hair. Ray shivered again at the warm, mumbling sound of his laughter, the feeling of his hands in her hair as he continued his ministrations. Kylo returned to the bed with a small glass of wine for her. Are you nervous, my sweet? She peered up at him and shook her head solemnly as she accepted the glass, draining it with one quick swallow. I trust you, Kylo. I trust you both. Very good, he chuckled softly as he took the empty glass from her, then dropped slowly to his knees before her and drew the hem of her chemise up over her thighs. He reached up, untying the ribbons that held her stockings up and rolling them down with a deliberate sort of care that bordered on torturous. My lord husband, she whispered huskily, must you move at such a glacial pace? Kylo looked up at her with a smirk. We have all night, sweeting. We most certainly do not have all night, for I am about to burst into flames for the want of the pair of you. My own love. Ben set the hairbrush down on the bedside table, drew her waves of shimmering hair away from her neck. We will not rush this. We must not. He placed his soft plush lips against her neck at the same time Kylo lowered his mouth to her inner thigh. Her legs fell open and her head fell back as they moved with almost synchronous precision, lips and teeth and tongues grazing her skin. So soft and sweet, Kylo murmured into the sensitive skin of her thigh. I've waited so long for this. We both have. Ben placed a finger beneath her chin, turning her to face him. I have wanted you since the first moment I saw you, my beloved girl. He slanted his mouth over hers for a deep, demanding kiss. At almost the same moment, she felt Kylo's tongue dart between the folds of her cunt, seeking at that most sensitive spot at the apex of her womanhood, and she let out a gasp. She'd known his purpose from the moment he dropped to his knees, but the first touch of his tongue on her clit never failed to shock and surprise her. Kylo braced her legs open with his broad shoulders, and Ben placed a hand at the small of her back to lay her gently on the bed before untying her chemise to reveal her small, firm breasts. As his brother continued to work her open with his tongue, Ben leaned over, capturing a rosy nipple between his lips. Ray bucked at the sensation, and Kylo reached across her to keep her still, pressing down on her abdomen with his forearm and taking her right hand in his left. Ben grasped her left hand in his, and in her mind she was momentarily back at the luncheon table only hours after they'd met, the first time the three of them touched. Remembering the frisson of heat between them, the inevitability of this, of them, all three of them together, struck her anew, and she whimpered at the memory. My God, the taste of you. I will never have enough. Kylo hummed low in his throat, and the vibrations shot through her core. He continued to lap at her folds languorously as Ben teased and sucked at her breasts, grazing them ever so softly with his teeth until they puckered into stiff and sensitive peaks. I cannot keep my hands off you, he murmured, before taking what felt like her entire breast between his generous, talented lips. You are the most alluring woman I've ever known. Either one of their purposeful, perfect mouths might have easily brought her to completion without much effort, so worked up was she after a day and a night without their touch. But as they attended to her together, Ray felt the inexorable tightening across her abdomen in only a few minutes. I am so close, my lords, she whimpered huskily. The brothers redoubled their efforts and tightened their hold on her hands as she shattered beneath them, crying out in ecstasy. As she lay panting, Kylo lifted his head and released his grip, favouring her with a saturnine smile. Her core was still fluttering when he lifted her lips and slid a pillow beneath them. Ben, sensing his brother's plan, almost immediately captured her mouth with his once more as he moved a large hand over her quim, sliding 2 fingers easily inside her. Kylo turned his single-minded attention then to her tightly puckered hole, laving it relentlessly with his tongue until it relaxed, while Ben's talented fingers thrummed against the front wall of her cunt, with the auspicious addition of a broad thumb on her clit, precisely whose she could not say. Another orgasm washed over her in short order, and she let out a guttural cry. The brothers rose before her as one finally shucking their long shirts to reveal their nakedness, and Ray let out an involuntary gasp at the sight. She had seen them thus a dozen times or more since their return from London, of course, but as she gazed upon their massive bodies in the guttering candlelight, it was with a renewed appreciation, for as of this night, they would belong wholly to her. Kylo was rippling, sinewy strength personified, a coiled cobra ready to strike, where Ben was broader of form, like a powerful, magnificent bull. The one similarity between them was the size of their imposing erections, and Ray's mouth watered at the sight of them, ruddy and stiff and bobbing before her. She drew a shuddering breath as she sat up, pulling her chemise over her head before looking expectantly up at them, her brows drawn, a lower lip between her teeth, an unspoken question in her eyes. To this point in the evening, their exploration of her body had been both exquisite and familiar, a mapping of her curves and hollows and holes. They had played variations on a fortnight or more. But what came next this night was a mystery to Ray, and she briefly wondered if she should perhaps be on her hands and knees on the bed to take them, as a mare might be covered by a stallion. It was Ben who properly construed her confusion. He sat slowly beside her and took her hand once more. For this to work, my love, I think you'll have to mount me astride. Astride, my lord? Yes, Marilla, you'll be able to take us both that way. If you mount me astride and lean forward as you're ready to take offense on Rebel. And this way, You'll be able to proceed as slowly as you wish. Kylo added, taking another hand in his. You'll take Ben first, and if you ask, I will sheathe my sword to the hilt as well. You need only say if you are not ready for us both. I am prepared to wait if it is too much. He leaned over her, and his gaze grew even more penetrating. If we are too much. But we have planned to... I know very well what we have planned, Rey. But I feel it is incumbent upon me to inform you that my brother and I are both somewhat more well-endowed than average. Ben interrupted with a chuckle, and Kylo favoured him with a quelling look before continuing. And whilst I know you only have very large stallions as a point of comparison, it may be that when the moment comes you will change your mind. Promise me you will tell me if it is all too much. Rey's heart squeezed in her chest at the expression on his face. She never dreamt she could feel so cherished or cared for by one man, let alone two. I promise I will tell you. She glanced from Kylo back to Ben. But I trust you both. You know this. We do. Ben smiled at her. A soft, beautiful smile that Rey didn't think she'd ever seen before, and her heart constricted once more as he slowly laid back on the bed, his feet planted on the floor. She nodded in silent understanding and threw a leg over him. He wrapped his enormous hands around her waist, and she looked down as he guided her slowly over his straining erection. She reached for him, dragging the tip of his cock through her wet, swollen folds, and he groaned, bucking beneath her. "Shh, my sweet boy," she murmured, soothing, and in precisely the same way she used to calm Rebel. "I'll give you your head soon enough." From behind her, she heard Kylo chuckle softly. "Do not lengthen the reins over much, my lady wife. He is likely to gallop away with you." Rey drew a deep and steadying breath, tightened her grip just a fraction on Ben's member. He dug his fingers into her waist as she allowed him inside, slowly but steadily. The stretch of her around his cock was exquisite, a sweet, burning sensation that increased as she took more of him into a wet and waiting channel. "Are you all right?" he gritted out, clearly holding himself back. "Perfectly," she nodded quickly, breathing through her nose and willing herself to relax and take him a little deeper. She pushed up on her knees and then sank down in one fluid, determined motion. Ben sucked in his breath and gazed up at her in wonder, neither of them daring to move for a long, lovely moment. Rey shifted her hips experimentally, pulling another groan from deep in Ben's chest. "May I?" she whispered. "May I move, my lord?" "God, yes, Mirella, if you do not move, I think I may expire." She bit back a smile and rose up, and slowly lowered herself down onto his cock once more, and then again, riding him up and down in much the same manner she might post the trot, quickly finding a rhythm. The feeling of him beside her was glorious, better even than his admittedly talented fingers and tongue. "Just so, my sweet love," Kylo murmured, encouraging from behind her. She leaned back, finding a new, wonderful angle, looked over her shoulder as she rode Ben's cock. "I need more," she whimpered. "I need you. Please." "You do?" She nodded emphatically. You do. I never don't love that line. It's just so good. Rey leaned forward, her hair falling in a soft chestnut curtain over her face. She heard the familiar click of the stopper of the crystal oil flagon, followed by Kylo's warm, slippery fingers on her arse. "You are doing so well," he murmured, carefully working 2 long digits inside her. "Are you sure you..." He broke off as she let out a frustrated huff and pushed back against him. Taking that as all the permission he required, Kylo quickly covered his own straining cock with oil and positioned himself, bracing his feet on the floor between her legs and gripping her hips. All right, then, my sweet love. Kylo's voice was low and soothing. Ray recognised the same tone he used to calm Silencer when he grew restive. It will be best if you allow me entrance alone. Ben may rejoin the fray as soon as you're certain you can accommodate us both. Ray nodded in silent understanding and raised herself up. She felt keenly the loss of Ben's enormous cock, but she told herself it was only temporary as she bent low over his chest, shifting her centre, and slid her hands onto his glossy mane of black hair. She stilled then, feeling Kylo's cockhead pushing against her opening, and as she'd done with his brother, she drew in a deep breath through her nose, willing herself to relax as he pushed inside inch by inexorable inch. She had a moment of unease, sure that Kylo would never fit, but Ben reached beneath her, sensing her distress, and strummed her clit gently. She felt a fluttering in her core and pushed back against Kylo, and he breached the tight ring of muscle without much more effort. Kylo let out an almost inhuman growl low in his throat. Oh, God, but you feel perfect, Ray. He pulled back slowly, then eased himself inside again and again, increasing his pace as Ray's sighs grew louder and more enthusiastic. More, she whimpered, reaching for Ben's member. Ben grabbed her wrist. Are you certain you're prepared to take us both, my love? I am certain I will die if I do not take you both. Kylo ceased his movements then, and she centered her attention on Ben once more, taking him in hand and dragging his cockhead through her folds before plunging him inside her. The three of them sighed in near perfect unison, but no one moved for a long moment. Kylo bent over her back, brushing her hair aside before reaching his long, slender fingers around her hips. You shall set the pace, my love, he whispered against her neck. She nodded wordlessly, drawing a deep breath, and then shifting her hips away from Kylo and toward him again. Both men let out guttural moans at the movement, and the sound of their pleasure washed over her, removing any remaining apprehension she might have felt. Indeed, all she felt was them. Ben thrust up into her slowly but insistently, and as he retreated, Kylo pushed in from behind. Ray rocked between them both, feeling impossibly full, but still chasing something more. The brothers seemed to sense her need, and they answered with their own, finding a steady tempo of advances and withdrawals, thrusts and parries, a synchronized and steady assault on her senses and her emotions. She had a brief lucid moment when, as her legs strained and shook beneath her, she felt gratitude for the hours on end spent astride a massive, broad-backed stallion. She flexed her walls experimentally around them, drawing a growl from Kylo and a moan from Ben. He tightened his hold on her waist as the relentless rhythm of his own loins began to falter. At the same time, Kylo began to thrust more insistently, either to speed his brother's completion or his own, for Ray was certain they must be able to feel one another. Her eyes flew open, and she met Ben's look of blissful wonder with her own, lowering her mouth to his and swallowing his groan with a deep kiss. She then arched her back, looked over her shoulder at Kylo. He slid a hand beneath her jaw and pulled her toward him, kissing her sweetly and savagely. In response, she gently bit his lower lip, and he growled again before releasing her. Ben groaned deep in his chest as Ray shifted forward and clenched around him. I don't believe I shall last. Nor I, brother, Kylo replied through gritted teeth, gripping her harder by the hips. Ray bucked between them very near her own release, and somehow still keenly aware of their pleasure. She had never felt so utterly vulnerable as she did with both of them inside her at once, but at the same time so very powerful. Years of guarding her heart, of giving freely of her love, but asking for as little as she could afford for herself in return. Perhaps it made her greedy, and in this moment, pressed between the two people she cared for most in the world, she was covetous of that about which she had read so often in those naughty books at school, described in such flowery and euphemistic language, but nothing at all like the sweaty, glorious reality of sexual congress. She wanted the three of them to come together. Mine, she growled in a voice she barely recognised as her own. You are mine. She reached between her body and Ben's, placing her index and middle finger on her sensitive bud. She placed her right hand against his shoulder. Be with me. Then, using every last shred of control at her command, she reared back, deploying muscles made taut and strong by years of riding. Both men let out guttural cries of pleasure as she squeezed around them. The rhythm and their restraint broke simultaneously. Kylo swore profusely as he found his release, and Ben remained uncharacteristically silent, his face a rictus of ecstasy as he came. Ray couldn't say if it was the sound of one brother or the sight of the other, or her own deft fingers playing with her swollen clit. She only knew that the orgasm she felt was so towering that it caused her vision to white out and her ears to ring. She collapsed against Ben's massive chest, utterly wrung out, and Kylo sagged against her, holding himself up on shaking arms. Kylo murmured hoarsely as the three of them gasped for breath. I did not think it was possible to love you more. God help me. You are the most extraordinary woman I have ever known. Ray reached behind her, grasping his hand in hers, and pressed it to her breast. He had made no secret of his varied and vast experience with the fairer sex, of course, but had been circumspect, only expressing chagrin that he had not been more judicious in his choices. Now, however, there was a vulnerability and no small amount of surprise in his tone that made her heart flutter with joy. I love you, Mirella, Ben murmured, brushing her damp hair away from her face. I love you with everything in me. I love you, my lord, she sighed, burying her head in the crook of his neck, peering over her shoulder, tightening her grip on Kylo's hand. And I love you, my lord husband. You have both made me the happiest woman alive this day, and I cannot wait to share my life with the pair of you. Kylo slipped reluctantly from inside her as Ben rolled her to her side. They took their accustomed positions, then Ray cradled lovingly between them, their arms bracketed protectively across her. Shall we ride out tomorrow, my lords? Kylo snorted softly behind her. Give us but half an hour to rally, my sweet wife, and then between us, my brother and I will ensure that you cannot sit comfortably in the saddle for at least 3 days. Ray tilted her head, considering his words carefully for a moment. Is that a threat, my lord husband? It is a promise, he replied dryly. It is a pledge, his brother added, one that we shall undertake to fulfill with the greatest pleasure. I am made of sterner stuff than that, my lords. She smiled wickedly at both of them in turn. But I confess, I look forward to the attempt. A picture-perfect smut bite. Right? Aviander says, ugh, for which I heartily concur. Do we have a third? Is there emotion carried? Is the response to that, oh. No, it's just gorgeous. MotherKat says, oh, you make it sound so much better than it is. I do not. It's just fantastic. This is the same conversation. This is like straight up the same conversation I was having with Aviander. You've read it 1,000 times because you wrote it. So even if I read, like with Aviander, it's very clear that she likes me to read exactly to the punctuation. I am reading exactly to the punctuation. I'm not doing anything to it. Yeah, exactly. This. Oh, these are your words. This is what you've written, and it's gorgeous. So, don't get me wrong. You know, I attempt to inhabit the word as best I can, and that's my art. But honestly, I will admit to sitting there going, is it Saturnine or Saturnine? As the word was approaching, if you see a little bit of wild-eyed panic in my eyes, it's because I couldn't remember if it was Saturnine or Saturnine. I also can't remember which I went with when I was reading it. Oh, excuse me. Oh. So, which chapter of Triad do we want to have? Because I really want to. I really want to close out with some Triad. You can always tell what the ones that live in my head rent free are, because it's the ones I can actually remember the names of. I mean, that doesn't. Yeah. Oh, Sherbet. Yes. Sorry, the Rebel, the Rogue, and the Rakehell. Utterly glorious fic. Triad. So there are 3 episodes, 3 chapters of Triad. Yes, never forget. Come on, give each other some kudos and comments if you're catching up on YouTube. And I know you are. And I don't know why you don't comment or like, but I know that the last stream got 40 odd views. But 40 people watching it, according to my stats, front to back. Go to the comments and the likes, and comment and like. Let the writers know that you're enjoying their work. Because if you let the writers know that you're enjoying their work, they'll write more. So I actually wrote something for a story that's about 3 years old. I think I read some of Horizon Plus on one of the streams, on the New Beginning stream, I think. And somebody started reading it. Now this is a 4-year-old fic. Somebody started reading it and they started doing those comments on the chapters. You know, the really good comments. The comments that like have some quotes in and a little bit of meta-analysis and my personal favourite. Oh, I get little thrills when people try and guess what's going to happen next. That's my favourite thing. And I've got most of a chapter ready to go for a story that I haven't touched in years, because somebody commented. So likes and comments are supremely important to go onto these fics. Like them, comment them. If you're catching up on YouTube, all the links will be there under the bio. If you expand it, go to the fics and like them and leave comments, because very important things. It will help people write more, and if they really, really like it, they'll go, MK, will you read it on the stream? And I'll go, yes! Or, even better, MK, will you record it? And I'll go, yes! I'm working with an accessibility project. So this is a plug for something I'm doing in the Sansan fandom. There's an accessibility project, and I'm doing some work for them. So look out for that. There will be some more MK Reads narrations coming up as part of that project in the future, hopefully, if I ever get recording time without another crisis. Right, so do we know what chapter of Triad we want? Because we've read chapter 1 of Triad on the stream before, so we could obviously have it again, or we could have chapter 2 or chapter 3. So the episodic tales of Supreme Leader Kylo Ren, Emperor Squantling Phasma, and the former Jedi scavenger Rey. Together they forge a relationship as a threesome, ruling the galaxy as a triad. Any preferences? Or am I just going to read chapter 2 because we had chapter 1 last time? Or I'm reading chapter 1 again? Then chapter 3 is of our incredible author, Green Umbrella 03. It is offering up chapter 3 for your edification. So that's what you're getting. Yes, my Empress. Oh, and yet we're going to be going over the end of my timer, and I don't care, because, you know, it's going to be more than 2 hours, so I'm sorry if y'all have places to be, but we're having some Triad, because I've been looking forward to this, and I thought I was going to be recording it tonight, but I'm just not ready. Give me 2 seconds, I'm going to get some water. 2 seconds. because I didn't bring my kettle full of water this time. Reminder to self, do not stream without enough liquids. Whew. So this is the female chapter. Kylo is not involved with the intimacies in this chapter. Green Umbrella, I know that you are not rushing me for the recordings, love. The fact that you're willing to wait on it is just lovely, and you and Avianda and Rioria Chua as well, who are awaiting narration from me, have been incredibly patient while I've been unwell, and I'm supremely grateful. I genuinely thought I was going to be ready. I was all psyched up to do it, and then I needed to go and get some antibiotics because infection, of course. And yeah, it was something that I really want to get this together, and I'm hoping, because you said if I narrate it, then it might, inspire you to write more. So one can only hope. He had kissed them goodbye 3 days ago, after they embarked on a mission to secure some world she'd never heard of, and it had been a long 3 days. The bond hadn't opened, and she was so lonely she nearly opened it herself. But she was respecting boundaries, respecting that he had actual important things to do as Supreme Leader and that she didn't want to interrupt. And if he was as lonely as her, he'd open the bond himself, right? So, since he hadn't, she just worked it out in training. The problem with being so physically fit, so trained, is that it took a long time to get tired. So she alternated training with learning. She'd never allow herself to truly feel inferior by acting like she lived on a rock on Jakku with no education. She'd never allow herself to feel so behind an educated prince turned Jedi turned Sith influenced turned Supreme Leader. She'd never allow herself to feel so inadequate compared to a trained warrior who'd worked hard to earn her way into the highest position of any woman in the galaxy. So Rey sat cross-legged in her quarters reading a datapad to learn about some of the planets she'd had talk of recently. She started with the planet Kylo was on, learned about the history of the peoples, of the topography. She even found a place considered touristy that she wished she was at right now. There was a brief notification at the door of her quarters, but the door opened before she even had time to unfurl from her position on the couch to answer. Gwendolyn Phasma Skywalker Organa Salo walked in and heaved a sigh as she flopped onto the couch across from Rey. What a day, Gwen groaned. Rey set down her datapad. Oh, the talks didn't go well? Gwen had remained by on the new supremacy to broker some talks with a planet that not even the Empire had bothered with before. They were considered to be so insular with few resources to bother with. But Gwen was under the impression that no planet should be without potential entry to the protection of the First Order. Kylo was not the right person to talk to them, as they were an all-female culture, so Gwen had taken it on. Their culture is very interesting. In a way, I really understand them. In others, not at all. I'm officially going to recruit some good female leaders after this. It's difficult being the only woman in these talks, with apparently all of our best generals being male. Ah, you feel all alone today, then? Gwen's eyes flashed to Rey. I didn't say I was lonely. Rey held her gaze. I didn't say you were lonely. I said you felt alone. She unfurled her legs. Are you lonely? Gwen's eyelid was twitching now. If I was, I wouldn't admit it. Ray sighed. Okay. She stood up and walked to her kitchenette, grabbing a cheese stick. Are you ever not hungry? Gwen mocked from the couch. Rarely, Ray replied, her mouth full. Besides, I eat my feelings sometimes. I'm telling you, one day your metabolism's going to stop kicking in and you'll gain 50 pounds the way you eat. Ray shrugged. I'll worry about it then. I just trained for 5 hours today. I think I can manage a cheese stick. Gwen harumphed from her place on the couch, and it was silent for a few minutes before the crunch of crackers Ray had brought back to her spot on the couch. Finally, Gwen reached forward and poured herself a handful of crackers and crunched along with her. Ray sat silently past her a glass of water and felt grateful for the company. We could have a legitimate dinner sometime, you know, Gwen said between munches. Yeah, or we could just be together. The crunching stopped immediately and Ray swallowed hard, wishing she could take her words back. Why did she always misspeak about the one person who never seemed to miss hearing something Ray wished she hadn't said? I mean, you know, it's just... Ray tripped over her words. Stop blathering. Gwen sat up and leaned toward Ray. Why are you eating your feelings? You lonely? Ray opened and closed her mouth a few times before just admitting it. Yes. Gwen shifted uncomfortably. Did you... just say, are you wanting to go off ship? Ray's eyes widened. Oh, no, it's not Finn or Leia I miss. It's... She bit her lips, still unsure of boundaries. Kylo. Going to finish for her. Yes and no. Now Ray wished the carpet would swallow her up. Explain. You've been busy too, and not that you need to care. I don't need to be babysat. Ray jutted her chin out defiantly. Gwen cocked her head towards Ray. I didn't say you needed to be babysat. Good, because I don't. Gwen sat back on the couch and regarded Ray. Hypothetically, if I had visited you these past few days, would this have made you happy? Less lonely? Ray nodded slowly. I don't just miss Kylo. So when you said the meal would interrupt us, did you mean you wanted my company? Ray bit her lip and just nodded. I like this. I was enjoying sitting here with you. Gwen gave her a look that Ray had never seen on her face before. It was almost flummoxed. Ray looked at her curiously and felt the sudden rush of emotion flooding off the woman as though she was speaking out loud. She wants my company? It's been so long since I've spent time with a woman. This feels nice. I don't know what to do with this. What would Kylo think? Ray gasped at the sudden onslaught. It never occurred to her that Gwen might be just as insecure as her, but in different ways. Have you ever just been friends with a woman before? Ray asked curiously. Gwen seemed to regain some of her composure. Once. Who was it? A trooper. She died. Gwen snagged another cracker. But it was different. As troopers, it's different. And I was driven to move up. She was softer. Ray moved to sit next to Gwen. She took her hand, feeling the tension move through the woman's body at her touch. I'm sorry you lost her. Gwen was silent for a while, stiff as a rod, unmoving. Ray stroked her hand softly with her thumb, and eventually Gwen relaxed. Very softly, very slightly. What about you? Gwen asked stiffly. Any female friends? Not really. I wouldn't consider Leia a friend like that. I might have been friends with Rose, but she was so close to Finn. I don't know if she could ever trust me. Ray released Gwen's hand, set her own hands on her lap, looking down at them. They're married now, isn't that right? Ray nodded. Yes. When I left last month, it was their wedding I attended. Gwen took a deep breath. So, no one on Jackie? Ray shook her head. No, no room for friends there. You had to survive, very few thrived. You couldn't afford attachments. Gwen nodded. I get it, troopers are much the same. DT-0321 was soft, too soft. And she is dead. Ray nodded. Ever wanted more? That friend? Someone to do hair with, laugh about boys with? I don't know, whatever girls do together. Gwen let out a snort. Never really thought about it. I gave a small smile. Yeah, me either. They sat quietly again. Gwen let out a small noise. I don't really do hair anyway. Me either. Yeah, those buns. Pretty easy to manage. Kylo cares more about his hair than I do. Gwen joked and Ray laughed. He cares more about it than you and me combined. Ray joked back. Granted, it's very nice hair. Very soft, Ray agreed. Your hair's pretty nice too, though. Gwen reached over and touched Ray's buns. It's that perfect shade of brown. Ray gulped and leaned her head towards Gwen's hand. You like me touching your hair? Gwen asked, a small note of surprise in her voice. Ray nodded and Gwen's fingers slowly worked their way to the pins holding Ray's hair in place. She pulled the pins out in quick succession and fluffed Ray's hair down. Ray let out a sigh. It always feels good to let your hair down. Gwen nodded. It's like a mini scalp massage when you loose it after a long day. She ran her fingers gently through Ray's hair, letting the hair relax behind her, gently touching her scalp with her fingertips. It was all Ray could do not to coo. Gwen smirked. You like this, Jedi? Ray's eyes snapped to Gwen's and she held her gaze. Yes, my Empress. A look briefly crossed over Gwen's face and her eyes darkened. As though she made up her mind, her fingers cupped Ray's head, and Ray was quickly pulled against Gwen's lips. Ray had kissed Gwen before, many times. But being alone with her, this was infinitely more intimate. It also felt not wrong, per se, but naughtier, more heady. She nearly melted on the spot from finally being with someone again. When they broke apart, she realised her hands were running through Gwen's hair as well, and she felt her cheeks flush. Closing her eyes and leaning her forward against Gwen, she murmured, I missed this. I missed you. Gwen's fingers were still working through her hair. I'm sorry, I didn't realise how alone you'd feel. I should have been here for you for the past few days. It's okay, too. You don't need to wait so long before you seek me out. I'm not used to having someone other than Kylo around to be with. Now you do have someone else. Ray climbed into Gwen's lap and pulled her back into a kiss. Gwen's hands slowly wandered down Ray's neck and her waist. I do, but I'm not wholly sure what to do with her, Gwen murmured, kissing across her cheek. Surely you know by now how simple I am. Ray nuzzled against Gwen's face. It's been a long few days. Spell it out for me. Gwen gave Ray's ear a nibble, making Ray groan. I just want to feel cared for, loved. Gwen pulled away and looked at Rey quizzically. So, it's not necessarily about sex. Rey gave a low laugh. Sex is nice, sex is great, but no. Gwen let out a small noise and returned to Rey's neck. Well, she murmured against her neck, that I can do. Hold tight, little Jedi. Suddenly Gwen's hands were on Rey's ass, and she stood up, lifting her. Rey gave a little giggle, throwing her arms around Gwen's neck and wrapping her legs around her waist as soon as they were clear of the couch. Are you kidding me? How are you that strong without the Force? Rey asked incredulously. Gwen's low laugh rumbled against Rey's throat. Many years of training. Can you lift Kylo? Rey was suddenly curious. I haven't really tried. Gwen reached the door to the fresher and hit the button to open it. Well, when you do, I want to watch, Rey laughed. What are we doing? I know you like the water in the fresher. I'm going to wash you and give you some special attention. Oh, that sounds amazing. How do you like the water? Gwen's eyebrow raised. Hot. A smile spread over Rey's face. Perfect. She reached out with the Force and turned the knobs. Water came out of the fresher head, and Gwen stopped walking. Nice trick. Thank you. I forgot you could do stuff like that. You literally just called me Jedi. Yes, but that's a term of endearment. I don't usually think of it in terms of your ability in the Force. Gwen sat Rey down on the counter but didn't move away. Rey's legs were still wrapped around her waist. I just don't throw it around as liberally as Kylo does. Rey started undoing Gwen's shirt. Truly, I don't think it's supposed to be used the way he does. Gwen started working on Rey's shirt. I wholeheartedly agree, however, I don't generally complain. They both laughed. Have you used the new loofah I sent to you? Jen asked, gesturing to the poofy-looking thing hanging off the water handles. Rey flushed. Honestly, I had no idea how to use it and I didn't want to look silly by asking. Gwen let out a sigh. You know, we all start out ignorant until we learn. No one will think less of you for asking about things like that. You say that, but Rey shrugged. It just wasn't worth it. Oh, you say that because you don't know what you were missing. Gwen finished peeling off all the clothes on Rey's upper body. Now you get a personal demonstration. Rey pulled off Gwen's shirt and tossed it across the room. I look forward to it. Gwen pulled Rey off the counter, sliding her down the length of Gwen's body as she went. It never ceases to amaze me how tall you are. Rey looked up at the other woman who smirked back at her. And you are just a little thing. Yeah, but it gives me a better angle for some things, Rey joked as she bent very slightly forward to place a kiss on one of Gwen's breasts. She had a sharp intake of breath. Hey now, that's not where we were going with this, Jedi. No, Rey gave a small nibble and looked up at the other woman. No, Gwen said firmly, bending away from Rey, working the rest of her clothes off. We're going to shower. You lead the way. Rey shimmied out of her clothes and helped pull Gwen's down. Oh, I will. Gwen stepped out of her clothes and pulled Rey toward the stream of water. She reached her hand out and her eyebrow shot up. How did you get it that perfect? Rey shrugged as they stepped in. I have my secrets. Well, you don't have to have the Force to do some awesome things like this. Gwen brandished the loofah. So what exactly is that? Gwen squirted some shower gel on the loofah and massaged it between her hands, worked it till it foamed up. Rey's eyes widened at the instant lather. Gwen looked at her triumphantly. Now, turn around, little Jedi. Tell me how you'd like this. Rey obeyed, and the next thing she felt was the most amazing sensation against her skin, soft yet satisfyingly scratchy. She almost swooned, and she audibly moaned. "What is that?" "I am washing you," said Gwen, and she did, meticulously, lovingly. I grow loofah on my allotment. Ray noticed Gwen put more pressure against certain parts of her body, like her calves and her feet. Ray felt like all the sadness and stress of the last few days were being scrubbed away from her soul. She was much more gentle with the loofah on her breasts, and she followed the path of the loofah with her hands working the soap around. Ray felt Gwen's mood change. "Hey now, I thought that's not what this was about," Ray teased. "You are infuriatingly distracting." "Oh?" Ray gulped at the way Gwen rolled her nipples between her fingers. "Yes, and I'm trying to be kind and gentle and loving, but you are wet." "And this is a bad thing?" "Yes." Gwen sighed and shifted, rehanging the loofah. Now her fingers were threading back through Ray's hair, working some shampoo into it. "I shall refocus." Or, Ray reached up and stopped Gwen's hands, "I could do the loofah on you." Gwen's eyebrows raised, and she was working at rinsing Ray's hair. "That's not how you talk about the loofah." Ray got on her tiptoes and pecked Gwen on the lips. "Sorry, I still need to learn about the loofah. Let me see if I'm a good student." Ray unhooked it from the handles and dutifully lathered it with shower gel like she'd seen the other woman do. Like this. Ray slowly scrubbed at Gwen's arms. The other woman closed her eyes, letting out a moan. "Yes, just like that." "And this?" Ray proceeded to work with the loofah until she was down on her knees, scrubbing Gwen's legs the way hers had been washed. Ray faltered at the view and realised what Gwen meant by distractions. She set the loofah down and touched the wiry man in front of her. As though she'd been jolted by electrical current, Gwen's hand immediately stilled at Ray's explorations. No, we aren't done yet," Gwen gulped. Ray let out a sigh. "But you're so wet, and it's distracting." "Okay, but I was supposed to take care of you." "What if?" Ray stood up, intentionally sliding her body against Gwen's. "This is taking care of me." And she planted a kiss on Gwen's mouth and felt the woman melt into her kiss. "But you want to be touched, right?" Gwen whimpered as Ray's arms encircled her. "I want to be close and loved. Isn't that what this is?" But Gwen's verbal abilities seemed to be lost when Ray shifted her attention to her breasts. "You've been alone for a few days too. Don't you want some attention too?" Ray nuzzled Gwen's soft breasts and gave a small nibble. I'm trying really hard to read the story, but the comments are hilarious. Dhampir, I was referring to the gown Gwen wears in the commissioned art. Dhampir said, "I know, but also loofah." Maybe we need to see if we can get Yams to do some art with loofahs. Dear viewers, they are giggling at me in the chat. I've never envied the Force quite as much as I have at this particular phrase. Rey used the Force to turn off the flow of water and call a towel to them. She released Gwen's nipple and caught the towel, wrapping it around the other woman's back. Let's move to the bed. Gwen's eyes opened and flashed at Rey for a few seconds before Rey found herself being picked up again, marched to the bedroom, and tossed unceremoniously on the bed. Humph! Rey gasped as the breath knocked out of her. Gwen flung the towel off her shoulders and pushed Rey's knees apart. Now to see how wet you are, Gwen announced, wearing a small smile as she discovered that indeed there was plenty of lubrication to warrant entry of a finger. Rey's back arched off the bed and she was only able to focus on one thing, Gwen. A second finger joined the other and slowly pumped in and out as Gwen gave her killet a slow lick. Oh! Rey gasped into the sheets. Gwen hummed against her. Do you like it slow or fast? Both, but please, just a little faster. Yes. It didn't take much. 3 days of pent-up need and a shower with Gwen had Rey shouting her climax with one well-timed hard suck of her clit. Rey lay there panting as Gwen sidled up to lay next to her. When she finally caught her breath, she turned to look at Gwen, who was staring at her impassively. What are you thinking about? Rey asked, not sure how to read her. Honestly. Of course. I'm wondering how you train for 5 hours at a time and still lack muscles. Rey's mouth popped open. Excuse me? Gwen shrugged. You asked. You think I don't have muscles? You were surprised I could pick you up. Clearly, to me, that indicates you would be unable to pick me up. Rey rolled on her back, scoffing. For one, you picked me up while sitting and got to a standing position, which requires a whole different set of muscles than is normal. Training. Second, have you looked at yourself? You're an Amazon. How many people do you think would be able to pick you up? Kylo can. Rey growled, and who felt Kylo with a saber fight in the snow untrained? You mean after he was bleeding out from a shot with a bowcaster? Rey flung herself onto Gwen, pinning the woman with her arms and legs. You want to know how strong I am? A look passed over Gwen's face and she gave a slow grin. In the comments, Aviander says cat fight and Dhampir says kitten tussle. Which I might have to make a t-shirt of. If I ever actually reach affiliate on the stream, I will get some kitten tussle t-shirts made. There will be merch. I might stick the MKR logo on it and just kitten tussle. Either that or surprise pornography. Right, back to the porn. The reason for lag just kicked in because my little robot that holds comments that it thinks might be dodgy had held pussy wrestling because it thought somebody might be being mean to someone. Yes, we do need a branded loofah as merch, Dhampir. That's amazing. I do think Aviander has nailed it that this is not in fact a cat fight or or a kitten tussle. It is in fact pussy wrestling. Pussy wrestling and a branded loofah. Oh my dear. Ray's eyes were slits. I don't think. I know. Emergency pornography. Which is different from a pornography emergency. Oh. I looked past over Gwen's face and she gave a slow grin. Please. You think you could best me? Ray's eyes were slits. I don't think. I know. I'm just a sweet transvestite. If you're gonna do lines from Rocky Horror Picture Show in the comments, Avienda, I am gonna sing at you, and then everyone can blame you for it. Although, of course, the line after that, in fact, is but maybe the rain is really to blame, so I shall remove the cause, but not the symptom. Blame, thank. If I ever sang more than 4 bars in a row on the stream, then you might know that it's blame and not thank. Has everyone seen the manip that I did of Kylo as Fran and Furter? I was dead pleased with it, but it's like, of all my manips, it's got the least reactions. Everyone was clearly just a little bit horrified that I'd done that. I'll send it you later, babe. Actually, I can just pull it up on Canva. Hang on. Give me a sec. I'll just find it. My projects. Show more of my projects. See all my designs. There's so much. Oh my god, I've made some weird things. There's some deeply weird stuff in my Canva manips. I'm going to share it now, and you can see me scrolling through it. Oh, hang on. That's not the right thing. What am I doing? I'm entirely the wrong place. Give me a second. I have made just an obscene amount of stuff. And this is the joys of being multi-fandom, as you can see stuff from all the strange places that I make things for. What have I done with them? There we go. I was really proud of that. It's quite an early manip. I told you that. Did tell you I'd made it. I say things and people are like, no. Ray growled. Right. Gwen immediately rose to the challenge and Ray found herself pinned underneath Gwen within seconds. I'd say that was hard, but Gwen planted a kiss on Ray's forehead. That would be a lie. Ray growled. Oh, I don't think so. She bucked from beneath Gwen and shoved her off. Unfortunately, she shoved her straight off the bed. Ray reached out quickly and slowed the woman's fall with a force, but Gwen still hit the floor with a thud. Are you kidding me? Gwen cried out. I literally just showered. Ray hopped off the bed and landed on top of Gwen, pinning her limbs to the floor. You started it. A wrestling match ensued. More than one item of Kylo's nightstand came crashing to the floor beside them. Ooh, he's going to be pissed at that one. Ray gestured to the broken frame. Gwen grunted. I'll fix it before he gets back. He'll still know. How? Bond? Don't you threaten me. Gwen slapped Ray. Oh, you did not slap me. Ray slammed Gwen's arms above her head and held her still with a force. Hey! You can't do this, Gwen protested, trying in vain to wriggle but failing, as she was nearly incapacitated. You have proven you can't be trusted. Now you're at my mercy. Ray sat back on her heels regarding Gwen. Now, how to make this easier on me? Ray raised Gwen's hips off of the ground and spread her thighs, making her more easily accessible. She reached up, grabbing a pillow off the bed and wadding it under Gwen's lower back. Please note how nice I am. This is wholly inappropriate, Gwen ground out. Oh, and who are you going to report me to? The Force Police? Kylo, he needs to know how you use the Force inappropriately. Ray scoffed. Give me a break. I've never met a man more likely to use it wrong. And she bent forward and blew onto Gwen, feeling the woman shudder beneath her. Ray, that's not fair. Nothing's fair in love and war. Ray gave a small kiss to her entrance. And what is this exactly, love or war? You decide. Ray gave an inquisitive lick. The taste was different from Kylo. Have you ever done this before? Gwen growled. Ray paused. Have you? No. Well, then I guess we're having a night of firsts. Ray gently brushed around Gwen's sensitive knob and was rewarded with watching her lips start to swell. She was fascinated. I think you like this. I'll never tell. I'll still know. Now let's see. What did you do to me? Oh, yes. She gently put a finger inside of Gwen and was utterly fascinated both at the feel of the throbbing warmth around her and the view of her finger disappearing. Ray. Now, how does Miss Gwen like it? Ray teased, not cheesed. What the fuck? I'll have you executed for calling me that, Jedi. Ray growled. I don't think so. I think you like this. Ray blew some more as she pumped her finger in and out gingerly, feeling the excitement beneath her rising. I think you like it rough better, though. She slapped Gwen's thigh and inserted another finger, picking up the pace. She was rewarded with a loud moan and a new increase of wetness. I will end you. Oh? Would you rather I stop? Ray pulled out of Gwen and could have laughed or cried at the desperate noise that emitted from Gwen. Okay, my Empress. I will let you finish. You replaced her fingers, adding a third, and pumped them in and out of Gwen mercilessly. The woman beneath her was writhing, her climax building quickly, and Ray bit her lip, thinking of what she herself enjoyed. She pressed her other hand hard on top of Gwen's mound experimentally and released some of the Force's hold on Gwen. A scream rent from Gwen as she ground into Ray's hand, hips bucking to match Ray's thrusts, and Ray felt a rhythmic squeezing against her fingers. The sensation of a second burst of orgasm brushed against her brain, and Ray looks around confused. Kylo was looking at her, breathing heavily, and she nearly screamed. Kylo? That was unexpected. Ray's cheeks flushed crimson, and she glanced down at his messy chest. Apparently, he had been watching them for a while. Was that okay? He looked amused. At first I was worried you were fighting, but then I realised you were both naked. Do you think she likes it? Kylo glanced down at his wife and nodded. Looks like it to me. Thanks for taking care of her while I'm gone. I know it's been rough on her. She's helped me too. Kylo grinned. I'll let you two be. Don't enjoy it too much without me. Never. The bond closed and Ray released her force hold on Gwen. The woman collapsed on the floor, utterly undone. Ray snuggled between Gwen's arm and body, using the force to pull the blanket from the bed, laying it on top of them. Gwen's arm wrapped around Ray as best she could, and Ray moaned happily at the contact. You are an utter wretch. Do you know that? Gwen murmured. Yeah, you liked it. A sleepy grunt was all she got in reply, and they fell asleep. Ray sat up, stretching, feeling her bones pop. Next time, let's finish on the bed. Don't let amenities make you soft. Gwen sat up, cracking just as much as Ray was. I was thinking, you started the whole strength thing just to talk me into scrapping with you, didn't you? A look of amusement passed over Gwen's face. A woman never tells her secrets. Ray laughed and nudged the other woman. You're something else. You are too. Fran grabbed a handful of Ray's hair and nuzzled it. You smell like him when he uses shampoo. Ray pouted. He'll be back soon. I know, Gwen murmured into her hair. Just got to get through your talks and he'll probably finish around the same time. Gwen twirled Ray's fingers in her hair. Would you be willing to sit in the talks with me? Ray's eyes lit up, understanding the gravity of this question. Yes, I'd love to. A small grin played on Gwen's face. Good. I'll send you some minutes so you can brush up on what's already been discussed. She kissed Ray, and it was a good while later before they were coherent enough to summon breakfast. Chapter Epilogue. Ooh, she taught you the ways of the loofah. Kylo sounded impressed. Yes, Ray nodded. Seriously, that is not how you talk about the loofah. Loofah! Thank you so much, Green Umbrella. I'm so looking forward to getting this recorded and adding Foley and all of that good stuff. And I apologise for anybody who was like thoroughly horrified by scrolling through my the amount of ridiculous manips I make in Canva. The worst bit is I also have Pixar. There's even more in there. So thank you very much. It's only 40 minutes past when we shut down. Loofah. Oh, thank you so much, Green Umbrella, but for writing it and for sharing it with us. Thank you all so much for coming along this evening and for sharing your incredible work and for keeping me company and for being amazing. I'm not going to do another fluffy, and this is the last one ever because this is too much fun. But yeah, I will be doing monthly in-depths, and what I will probably be doing is like an hour-long warm-up before recording sessions. So basically, I'm just going to come on here and chat nonsense while I warm my voice up. So if you want to come and hang out, you can come and hang out. Why are you pouting, baby? Why are you pouting? Is it because you're poorly and you need us to keep you company? I'm really sorry, but this does not pay my bills. It's fun, but it does not pay my bills. And I hope you feel better soon, darling. I really do. So yeah, if you keep your Twitch notifs on, if I'm coming in here to warm up, you can just go, oh, read this one. I want you to read this one. And you can just throw stuff at me and I'll mad lib it. Or you can listen to me practicing scripts or whatever. Or, you know, doing stupid vocal exercises. Boom, 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 boom. So Avianda says, please be sure to schedule, please. I just said that I was just going to come on whenever and like when I was warming up for work. But I will be doing some scheduled stuff specifically with Avianda to get some pronunciation pieces correct. So if anybody wants to hear me learning how to pronounce Quebecois French, then, you know, keep your Twitch notifications on. Those ones we'll schedule, absolutely. But sometimes I'm just going to come on and chat nonsense. Joal. Is it still supposed to be more guttural? Yeah, so there'll be some scheduled ones that will be coming up specifically because I will be doing an in-depth. There'll be a chat interview with the author, with selected works by that author, and perhaps even some duet work with those of you who are inclined to read themselves. So, you know, if you want to volunteer to do one of those, to come on, you come on like Nick did last week, have a chat, we'll talk about your work, maybe duet some stuff, maybe do some other stuff. But the warm-ups will just be, I'll just come live and chat shit at you. I'm only like 15 viewers away from affiliate. Then I'll start getting 7p a session but there'll be adverts, so that will be worse. Basically, we need to not invite 15 more people because at that point it starts showing adverts, and that's terrible. All right, my loves, I'm gonna go. Sweet dreams. Don't forget, Dhampir, that there is all that stuff on YouTube. So if you just go watch it on YouTube, there's tons of the different streams. There's the ones that you got like caught away from work and that, so you can always just curl up and listen to us on there. All right.